And that's the thing. Coming back to Purple Goat a little bit, what was the biggest challenge when starting Purple Goat? Like, what was the biggest lesson that you learned?
Yeah, when I look back, it all pretty much played out how you would have wanted it to and dreamt it could have. So looking back, the broad kind of got more clients, so we got more revenue, so we could take on more staff, so then we could do more clients. And so that virtuous cycle was played out a bit, I don't say textbook, but it worked exactly as I would have wanted it to. But there's been some other curveballs on the road. So like one thing was, this story more, but for people listening, watching, Chris was a guy I was good friends with. He was very involved in Disability Horizons when it sort of almost not morphed, because Horizons carried on as a mag, but like that bit I told you about where I sort of worked out how to start an influencer agency. So Chris was the next person at Purple Goat, and he passed away December 21, and it was very sudden, and just obviously lost a dear friend, and everyone working at Purple Goat lost a dear colleague. And so that, anyone knows in life, when you lose someone close to you, it's a bit of a kick in the gut, and there's a process to grieve. But he was also very important at Purple Goat, just day-to-day running. And there was, and so I guess before I say the next bit, I also I got COVID and I was a bit unwell with it. But it was the same time that Chris died. And I'd also just completely flogged my body and my mind for like a year and a half getting the thing going. So fortunately, when I was just had to have a bit of time out to just look after my health, there was enough people in the business that had enough experience / confidence to just keep it going. Yeah. The blessing, or even the lesson to your question, is that you can't do it all on your own, and you do need a team, and you have to let go of the reins, and you have to delegate, and you have to trust people. And however much I knew that from all my binging of like books and podcasts from entrepreneurs, it was a hard thing the thing that I'd started as me with Go, and then it was like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. It was almost like I had to just get knocked down for a couple of weeks to then go, oh, actually they were coping fine without me. Yeah. So that was like a lesson that was really hard to go through. And even then, it kind of knocked my confidence for a while, because I was like, so where is my limit? I don't want to burn out again. So there was a few months that I got a bit in my head about all this. Yeah. But I think overall the lesson was you got to put your health first, probably most of all. And when you're starting a business, that's hard. But you've also got to have good people around you and trust them. So there's a few little nuggets amongst that anecdote.
I think as well, like you've touched on there, like the whole burnout thing, and like that, finding that balance is really hard, because you got, on one hand, like me and Martyn are very similar, listen to loads of entrepreneurial books, entrepreneurial podcasts, and it's always like, essentially you got the one side of the camp going, nope, get the appropriate rest up, like you're no good to anyone if you don't rest. And you got the other ones that just like, do it till you die.
Yeah. And maybe that's a bit about the role modeling of a disabled entrepreneur, because when our role models, I'm sure mine and yours are similar people, if not similar messages, there is that hustle, get up at 5 a.m., you've got your 9 to 5 and your 5 to 9, and and I think, and I don't want to fall into that, but I think some of that's true. I think there are times I've really worked way too much, but it got me part of that got me where I am. So I can't just pretend that isn't important, because it is. But we're allowed to hold paradoxes and contradictions. And so when you're feeling capable to work hard, you don't stop just because someone's saying, watch your health. But it's more the self-awareness that when you know you're burning out or you're close to burnout, then the other point is very, 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 very important to
Yeah.
actually go, this isn't worth getting ill and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it's quite paradoxical, these types of conversations, but it is both.
Yeah, and I think one example I would give is like I've gone through. I've brought it up quite a few times on the podcast. I went through quite a negative experience working for a startup, and then that had a knock-on effect on my mental health. So then that I almost got the like slap round the face lesson before I started getting really involved in the entrepreneurial space, social media space, and starting to like build my projects and build my different things going on. So like I kind of got the lesson before I'd even started. So my journey is really weird because I'm hyper aware of like, am I doing okay? Is my mental health okay? Is my anxiety okay? Is everything
Yeah.
all good? So then
Yeah.
I'm almost like, like you say, it's that whole thing of like, am I pushing hard enough, or is this the whole chip on the shoulder issue coming in? And I think it's so much of just a balancing game, as you
Yeah.
say. Like it's that whole finding the right mix. If you can work late, work late. If you're feeling good and you're on a roll, go for it. If you're not, probably pull back. But I just want to add an anecdotal point to that whole get up at 5 a.m. One side point, as someone who's got a disability, one thing that happens then is you sit there and go, right, I want to get up at 5 a.m., but if there's something you need assistance with and you can't do it yourself, then it gets very tricky. Like, for example, I would get up at 5 a.m., but I'd need someone to come and put my shoes on.
Yeah.
So then I'd have to wake someone else up to be like, no, I want to be productive. You've got to be productive.
Yeah. And so there's quite a few things thrown off from my head here because I guess what I was going to add before was just around the team. Like I also knew all along what my strengths and weaknesses were, but when it was only me, I had to do all of the stuff. But the more the team grew, I now double down on the bits I love and I'm good at, and that's better for Purple Go, better for the like bigger mission. So
Yeah.
just a little kind of general thought that like I'm not. It's funny. I did a lot with spreadsheets. I did A-level maths. I did a lot of stuff in economics with spreadsheets, but I don't like spreadsheets. Like I just struggle. Like I could blame my disability, but I think it's just a personal thing. I just don't like being in spreadsheets. But there are lots of, there are people that have to use spreadsheets in the job that maybe don't love them, but it's just, that has to be done.
Yeah.
But there are like, just as a more general point, there are people that like hate, say, finances, and there are people that just always wanted to be an accountant. So I guess another lesson was that the world's so diverse, not in the DEI, but just general ways. Like people have different skills, different interests, different passions. And when you harness all that into a business, you get much better synergy and output because you've got like idea generation and you've got people leaning into their strengths. So that was like definitely something there. But your point about the 5 a.m. and, how if someone might have to come then give you a hand. One thing I've definitely learned about is when I am a bit awake at night thinking of a business idea or up earlier, productivity doesn't have to be at the laptop or like a physicality. It can just be that thinking time or it could be like reading or listening to something. But I've sort of learned that, because as I got a bit older, like doing like a couple of days travel is probably a bit harder than it used to be. So I might spread out how many days I'm out and about. And also after that year and a half of starting Purple Go, being on laptops got really like burnout really was a partly around doing video calls at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So again, I found that like balance of not or trying not to be on video calls as much. But the reason I struggled was I felt guilty that I wasn't being productive. But I realized that I am being productive, even if I go for a walk with the dog or I'm like just giving myself a different activity, because often that's when the ideas come or you're just kind of ruminating on something. And I think for disabled people in particular, that's quite important to not feel guilty when we can't do stuff or how we do stuff. But we are actually very creative and valuable and productive in those moments of just thinking about cool ideas as well.